Niche karma in office and at home.
Yes, yes. So, Eastern wisdom, if we summarize all the 11 topics, first thing is very clear: the knowledge alone liberates. When I understand, Eastern wisdom works with uh, real, false, and unreal. So when we work on this, we bring an end to the suffering, physical, mental level. That includes a sense of insecurity, fear, unhappiness. They all dissolve. At the same time, we should also know that this mind divides and perceives. Whether when we say it is an object, mind divides. Whether we say subject, it is the mind, mental knower. I know you. It is my mind saying that I know you. You are an object and a subject in the knowledge. So, this is one way the mind, we receive the knowledge. But as long as the mind maintains its trinity, it is unqualified mind. Now I'm using a different way. It is unqualified mind. Oh, so what to do in the world? Keep on doing. Do nitya karma, live your personal, professional life with the same mind. But I should make it sure that I use the mind does not use me. No, no, I didn't understand. So I am upset, mind is using you. I am reacting, mind is using you.
As soon as mine became I, it using me.
It is using. So I will use it. So I remember that I has two components. One I is the real I, and the other is the false I that is being used by the mind. That false I has to be used, must use in my daily life. The moment I communicate, I live with that duality in a triangular format, I have to use this. There is no way. Otherwise, what will happen? The mind will play a trick with you. Honey says, I love you, and you say, why should I talk? There is only one consciousness and matter. So then you are going into a deeper level of ignorance. So we should be very careful. What is being careful? One thing is clear, that we can awaken to the real self in a waking state, not in a sleep state, not in a dream state. Okay, that is good. I know, I understand that. But now come to the waking state. So, waking state has two components: I am awake and I am aware, or I am awake but I am not aware. Yeah, honey is saying something very dear to you, and you are awake but you are not aware. So then honey will feel bad. How it comes? Because of the impurities of the mind, because the mind is not qualified. I'm going little deeper, but not very deep. It's easily understood. I am eating the pasta that I like. I am awake and I'm aware, so I balance my eating. I'm not aware. I say I like pasta, let me overeat. So this unqualified mind will enter into our activities, into our thoughts, speech, and action anytime. So what we are doing a self-inquiry. Self-inquiry is the best method to purify the mind. I simply become aware, awake and aware. So now that greediness to eat more pasta stops. So at that moment I have purified the mind. Where is the problem? Do I need to do practice? No. Knowledge alone can lead to whom? To the highest level of a seeker. So why you are explaining? We are implementing, if I use the word, it's a wrong word, but you will understand that. We are implementing the binary format. Implementing is a wrong word, but you understand that we are applying the binary format in our daily thought, speech, and action. Outside. Internally, we are sure that greedy consciousness is not me. There is only binary format. Reaction is not required. It is not that we have to suppress, we have to transform the reaction. No, it is not required. That is not my cup of tea. When it can happen, awake and aware. It happens. I am awake and the mind is pushing me. Which mind? Unqualified mind. I am awake. I am aware that it is pushing me. We have to be very careful. So, why Master introduces Mangalacharan? Because of this. That is one of the many reasons. The moment I remember Mangalacharan to our objective, so whenever we need an objective Mangalacharan, let us do it. But ultimately, otherwise, I am doing a subjective Mangalacharan. I am invoking that I am the real self, and that is. But it is supported by the four connection. Mangalacharan is supported by the four connection. I am clear about the subject matter, real self, qualified seeker, and reserved. So, what is going to happen over weeks of contemplation and reflection? One day you are contemplating and reflecting, and the mind will get absorbed into a meditative state. So, our master has given that it is a happiness permanent. So, happiness permanent. Oh, the greed is asking me to have more pleasure and to overeat. So, there comes the happiness permanent. Happiness permanent. So, then permanent illuminator, self luminous. Consciousness does not need the mind or the intellect or the ego to work. It is independent, self luminous, permeating. Now see that the water is permeating in every wave. So when the water is permeating in every wave, what it means? It transcends all the waves. That is why we use the word transcending. So when we use the transcending the mind, it does not mean that we crush the mind. We don't use the mind. Mind is an instrument, so we will keep on using it. So when I am aware that consciousness is permeating in the mind and the thought, I have already transcended the mind. When? Even when I am speaking. Because I could see that consciousness is totally independent, self-luminous, mind is not. That is the meaning, vyapakam. So when I say permeate, where it permeates in you, it permeates in me, it permeates in the wall, it permeates in the mountain, it permeates in the screen, it permeates in my honey. Oh, it permeates here, it permeates there, permeates. So why you use the word, that is another characteristics of our real self or the supreme self. So when it permeates, it is not taking the help of the name and the form. What does it mean? It is not taking the form of the body, three bodies. It is not taking the help of the panchkosha. Oh yes, swaprakasham. And when there is a swaprakasham, it is always pure. And when it is pure, it is beyond our imagination of the mind. So we remember that real self. I remember that supreme self or the real self every day in the morning, in the heart, which is nothing but the Satchitanand I. That is the goal of all the seekers, and I am a seeker to discover that supreme reality. I have done all prayers to the Shiva, to the Krishna, to the Ishwar, to the Durga, everything. That is why when we say that Soham means I am that. Soham is a mantra we say. But if we do not use the Soham mantra with understanding, then I am using it in a waking state, but I am not aware what I am doing. So even you are doing it for 10 years, nothing happens. People ask me which is the strongest mantra. You are the highest seeker. You are the strongest now. Any mantra will do. Shivoham. Oh, Krishna. The Shiva is a branch of a tree. That tree is the Ishwar. And Ishwar and the Shiva depends on the Satchidananda, the Supreme Consciousness. Now you say Shiva. Where is the problem? Shivoham, Klim Krishnai Namah. Any mantra will do. When we are very clear, 100% clarity is there. Clarity also means I am purifying the mind. We are going deeper. So everything is happening naturally. I am independent, not a part, property and product of anything in the world. Krishna, Shiva is a part and property and a product of the Ishvara. Ishvara is a part, property and product of the Supreme Consciousness. That is why I remember that real self. I have done all the prayer. I have done the prayer to all the gods, including Jesus, including Moses, including Prophet Muhammad, including well, it's the Jews, Moses. I have done everything. So mind should continue to move around that with awareness. I remember that real self that cannot be known by the mind and speech. So it means I am ready to separate by viveka this mind from the consciousness. That real self shines everything, including mind and intellect. So by negating what is known by the mind, I can realize the real self. Same I has a two component. One component I negate, other component is already the real self. So that I thought I'm speaking is a reflected consciousness. It is the mind and memory, intellect and the ego and the other. So I know the real self indirectly. Every day in the morning I remember that real or the supreme self or the consciousness beyond the darkness or the ignorance shines like the sun all the time, in all the three states, in all the panch koshas, in my thought, speech, and action, in my personal, professional, and social life, and from there I start my journey. We understood that the real self by metaphor that it is like a lamp covered by the one box and the second box there is a darkness, so that is unqualified mind. So we should not get worried about it, we should make it qualified. I have to use the mind, let me use the mind as an instrument. So when the role of that instrument comes to an end, I say that's all. So then what happens? That real self illumines in the mind and I know myself. So he gave an example of a tree. The tree is like the world and the universe where the gods and goddesses are there, where my honey is there. I see them differently. So when I see them differently, it is like it. But they have one common source, that is Ishwar. And behind that Ishwar, there is a real self. Never forget that the teacher passes on the knowledge that is an indirect knowledge. I'm reminding you. What is direct knowledge? When I recognize and realize that I'm the real self, that is the direct knowledge. So we should reflect on the real seeker does not know the real self directly but indirectly. Or I would now use the different word. The real self knows the real self. The seeker knows the real self directly because the self knows the self. Unqualified mind creates a veil, creates a level of ignorance. That is why I am not able to realize the real self. So I keep on purifying the mind. No one can reach to the 100% purification of the mind. Why? Because of the past sanskaras. Because of the sanskaras that I carry forward from the previous birth. Because of the sanskaras I carried forward since my birth in this life. Because when I was born, I was unconscious. So I was living in ignorance. So I did many things which created lot of sanskaras. Those sanskaras will definitely appear and disappear. So no way one can reach to the 100% purification of the mind. What do you mean by 100% purification of the mind? The death of the body. No sanskara is left. How it can work? That needs to be clearly understood. When no sanskara is left, because of the sanskara the body exists. Body is made up of the sanskaras. So if you think that 100% purification, but it does not mean that we can rationalize. No, we start rationalizing. That no, you see that because of previous sanskaras, I became angry over you. Wrong. Why it is wrong? Because the real self is the only existence that is self-illuminating. Mind is not self-illuminating. So the mind has started using it. Even if those sanskaras are there, But without consciousness being reflected into the mind, you cannot use it. That is what Buddha says compassion. Compassion conscious directly goes to the mind and then it expresses, I love myself. What is that myself? Is the real self. When I love you, the love expressed as compassion. The moment I enter into a triangular format, it is the same love. The highest level of a seeker in one way is the extremely selfish. Selfish in a right way. Selfish is the real self. Because I cannot prevent loving you. That is why I love you. I cannot prevent because the real self is made up of the love. So that is being selfish. Not the other way. The selfish is that where the ego comes, you have cheated me and etc. etc. So that is the meaning of qualified mind illumines the real self. That is, mind cannot illumine the real self. But now this mind moves with the compassion. Mind moves with that compassion. So mind understand any knowledge we have understood, it has got the three elements. Any knowledge that we get from the mind, object is the mouse, thought of a mouse plus reflected consciousness, I know the mouse. And at the same time, the mind, because now understands. So the mind, you see, it is qualifying. What is the object? Is the real self. I am real self. No need of reflected consciousness. I know the real self. So everything is happening in pure consciousness. Outside you are expressing as a thought, like the wave in the water, but at the same time you are also aware it is all water. There are many waves, but at the same time it is not difficult for us to realize waves are water. I need not to say it. So that is why we say I know the real self indirectly. But from the standpoint of real self, the real self knows the real self. Because of this confusion in the mind, we use the word impurities, enemies of the mind. We start saying that there is a lower and the higher consciousness. Then we point these lower and the higher consciousness as chakras. And if they are chakras in the pranic body, in the pranamaya kosha, we say it has its effect on the physical body, annamaya kosha, and then it has a tremendous impact on the mind. So now we have discovered the path of kundalini. Lower and the higher consciousness. We have divided the consciousness into 7 chakras. We say Muladhara, the lowest consciousness. Oh, but don't I know that the consciousness cannot be divided? Why you are thinking that consciousness can be divided? So what happens? You jump very high. Okay, you are right. I'm not talking of the lower, higher, middle consciousness. But yes, it is still applicable to those who are treading the path. Our journey in this Eastern wisdom, we say we should never hurt anyone. if one follows the kundalini meditation, we should encourage them. At least whatever you are doing, you continue to do. Until you are ready to jump, you become the higher level of a seeker, then only we are allowed to talk. Otherwise, the tradition says never hurt. Don't say that it is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Everything is consciousness. So how anything can be wrong? You are praying Jesus, pray Jesus. Krishna, yes, continue. So we understand the level of qualification of these seekers. I told you in the Hatha Yoga text there is a one, they have explained everything in more than 500 verse, and in the middle they said this is nothing but the mind. Come on. The same master who explains painstaking explanation. If you do this pranayam, you have these experiences, you have this imagination, you have this vision, your problems are, physical problems are gone, it can delay your aging process, you live longer. If you do this practice, if you do this asana, if you do this Hatha Yoga Nidra, ultimately they come down. And I see that only one verse. So they indirectly hinted that are you a highest level of a seeker? Yes. Leave the rest. Start the journey. Yes. So just to remind, all these first 12, first 11, I would say first 11 topics focus is on Mangalacharan. It is a subjective reality. I have to see, because subjective pertains to who am I. So in the very beginning, this master says to the highest seeker that this real self is at the center. Do not, if mind brings any secondary object, secondary idea, secondary thought, contemplate and reflect and return to the subjective reality. Just by saying, awake and aware, I remember the real self. The rest is the matter, material world. Matter is inert, and what is inert cannot know itself, cannot know others. There was another girl I was guiding. She is a teacher in your country. So she used to attend personal sessions. So her problem is that she lives, her house is borders the school where she teaches. She is a wonderful teacher. Everyone respects her. But at the same time, the school has opened a football ground. And since morning until late night, these kids are playing football. They make it too much of noise, and that noise creates a problem to her. So anytime she listens, she closes all the doors and still she listens. She has sleep disturbances because of that noise. She has something like high blood pressure, she told me, and she has, and the entire story goes on. What is outside? The moment I see the binary format, the other is simply a matter. And I asked her that can does the noise is conscious of you to create a problem to you? She says, I don't know. It means yes, noise is creating a problem. It means noise is intentionally creating a problem to you. And you will be surprised that she has a deep depression because of this. And see the conflict. When she goes to the school, she loves all the kids. So, so if I cannot recognize, I do not contemplate and reflect, one thing to become the highest level of a seeker, and why I mentioned her. Second is that because my impressions, the past impression that I carried forward, is blocking my understanding. She says, I understand intellectually, but I'm not able to translate that into my daily life. When I'm listening to you, one part of the mind says that I understand, other part of the mind is already listening to the noise and disturbed. So obviously this teaching is not for her. It cannot work. It cannot work. So I have to guide all the, breathe in and out and do this and that and use the mantra, and then she says, this week is good and the previous week was not so good. The mind lives into that impurities. So you see that all the 11 topics, just you have to contemplate and reflect on the 11 topics, focused on Mangalacharan, plus 4 connections. Respect and regard the real self and the supreme self are one and the same. So my idea in the mind plus the memory in the mind about all the gods and goddesses, all so-called the supernatural powers, dissolves binary format. Finished. How to define the real self and the supreme self was the second topic. What are the benefits of defining supreme self in 8 characteristics? Benefit is that this mind is becoming subtle, or the intellect becomes subtle. What does it mean by the intellect becoming subtle? Then there is a rise in awareness. I was living at a lower awareness for the sake of understanding. Now I live at a higher awareness. Naturally. Rejecting the tradition is not appropriate, says the seeker. This is what happens when we start the journey. In the very beginning, every teacher says, respect Guru, bow down to Guru, here is a God, here are the goddesses, there are many. So now that seeker wants to inquire, but the seeker wants to keep sticking to the what he has done in the past. Why? Think of it, why? There is a fear. If I don't worship Krishna, Krishna is going to take revenge. So there is a fear, there is a dissatisfaction. Oh, I did not pray today. I did not put the incense sticks today. No, it's good to do it because the mind creates those good impressions. But if you have not done, there is no question of any fear. God and goddesses are not there to scare us. They are not the devil. They are not the people working in the stock market. You have invested the money is going to cheat you. So our mind creates a lot of wrong notions. Why I am explaining, so that at least when you think like this, the mind gets free from the fear. Okay, it's okay. I did not remember Krishna. Let me remember Krishna in the form of a real self. Done. Now I did not put the incense stick, so let me put mentally the incense sticks. Done. Why? Because the truth is there is only binary format. so, the, oh, so what is going to happen? The mind will withdraw inside. It will visualize the Krishna. It may imagine. It may feel Krishna or Shiva or Jesus. So there is no sin. So there is no sinner. I am not a sinner. We should get rid of that idea. Remembering the highest reality is the right approach to begin the journey of the self-discovery. He answers, for six is, why not remember Ishvara? At least, if you don't believe the God of name and the form, you should believe the God without name and the form, the innermost self. That is omniscient. That is what the Western approach is. We see the absolute truth, innermost self. Absolute, it is without name in the form. It is most powerful. It also acts in the law of attraction, if you have studied this. So that innermost self is the law. It is a part of that but no, innermost self is okay, but after innermost self depends on that real self. And that is what I am remembering. Why not remember Ishwar is a relative reality. Why I don't remember? It's a relative reality. It is not an absolute reality. Does not exist independently. Hence I remember. So you are an individual, but claim you are an absolute reality. Yes, from the standpoint of a wave, I am an individual, but that individual appears and made up of the absolute reality. That is why I remember. Well, how I do it, the way the snake is negated in a rope, same way individual is negated in absolute reality. I was just talking before this session. You see the mirage water, you approach near to the mirage water, it disappears. You go far, again the mirage water appears. So it is and it is not. Now compare this. This body, it is now, it is not. It is not. Honey means body. We come mind later. So it is and it is not. So why to worry? It is and it is not. Anything that is visible, the world of the name and the form, is and is not. It is constantly changing. It is a part, product, and property of something beyond. So your Ishwar is a relative reality, not absolute. So you are an individual, but claim you are an absolute reality. Yes, I have to claim I am an absolute reality. Because I recognize what is and what is not. When I recognize what is, and in another session, he was telling me that my cousin, who was 19-year-old, died by a heart attack. He had an extreme stress to qualify for the engineering examination in India. That is the most difficult. Out of 2 million people, hardly the seats of engineering college, that is highly recognized by US. It is known as IITians, IIT, Indian Institute of Technology. They give a superb engineering degree, and US companies, they ask you from where you have done IIT, come. Welcome. That label. So first is the label in the world. Then I have an intense desire. Then I work hard and they accumulate a stress. So 19-year-old died of an heart attack. So negated. I have to negate that snake superficially. You are a guru and a monk, follow the tradition of meditation on God and the guru. Follow discipline outside. Yes, I agree with you. I will continue to do it. You are the lowest level of a seeker. I will guide you definitely. But for me, I know who am I. 11 topics. Now coming in a different way, now 12 and the 13th topic, the master says why to study this text. Why to study my text and why to study this text from a teacher. So he says the name is Vichar Sagar. Vichar Sagar means ocean of thoughts. So in that ocean you have waves. They are chapters. And the waves, under the waves you have topics. They are the ripples. Ripples of the waves are there. So why you study? So first we have introduced. So first he says that I have written this text, Master says, I have written this text in the form of a dialogue between the seeker and the master to discover the real self. So you need not to have a blind belief. You need to understand the question, you need to understand the answer, contemplate and reflect. Why there is a dialogue between question and answer? To remove all the objections and the doubt. Second part, he says, I am defending the tradition that is more than 10,000 years old. All our great masters realized the same absolute reality. So I am also defending the teaching. Third point. So he says, in order to reach to that absolute reality, you have to study maybe about 300 texts under a teacher for more than 10, 20 or 30 years. I spent on it, and I have summarized that teaching into this text. He says that every teacher will teach from his perspective. He will choose the text from his perspective. And I have summarized everything into one text. That is why you should study this text. Another point is very important. That is how we have to contemplate. There is a tradition in Eastern wisdom that we teach with the 6 indicators. Every statement that we make with the 6 indicators in the teaching. You see that I am just revealing all the secret. There is no problem. It's very difficult to reveal the secret, in science. I have got a patent. I will not tell you until the product is out in the market. We don't have any problem. Why? It is an open secret. Why it is an open secret? You are the highest level of a seeker, you will get it. It's a royal secret and still it is an open secret. So Guru has compassion and the seeker has a passion. Seeker is the highest level of a seeker, means he has a passion, and Guru has a compassion that this knowledge is already available everywhere. Only the seeker can get it. So, what you are talking of the 6 clues, that is the beauty of that every teacher will teach, even if you love the teaching of one teacher or the second teacher. Their understanding inside the intellect, they always use these 6 clues. Now it depends on the ability of the expression in a particular language, maybe high or low. But they have to use these. They normally use these 6 indicators. Every teacher, including Krishna, to the Arjuna. Why? Because they help us to clear the doubts that makes the mind qualified to discover the real self. It purifies the mind by understanding. Mind becomes transparent and it illumines the self. What are these 6 clues? I'm not going deeper. We will go deeper into that later. Linga is normally represented as a Shiva. So there is another meaning of linga. Why it is an open secret? It is because this. You go back to the Shiva. No. Linga means the indicator. That which indicates is linga. These pointers or indicators establish the importance of certain topics and are explained by the 6 indicators. What are these 6 indicators? First indicator. First indicator in Sanskrit is known as upkrama, upsambhar. So it means oneness of the real self and the supreme self at the beginning and end. So directly or indirectly, every teacher in the beginning of a lesson and in the end, they talk about, they indicate, they express the oneness. Why oneness? There is only a binary format. Whether even to the lowest seeker. My master used to say that I see 200 people, reflected consciousness. I see I am sitting everywhere. Only I exist. Where everyone has a different expression. The second pointer, that which is repeated, which is most important. That is the second indicator. Every teacher, directly or indirectly, they will teach with that. And gradually, after a few more sessions, when your mind repeats and remembers, oh, this is the same thing. Third pointer, whatever the mind gets some new knowledge, a fresh knowledge, which is unknown to you. Before starting this journey, I was always talking with the triangular format. And then in 11 topics, we understood it is only a binary format. So it's something new. So something new, if the seeker enjoys and understands, we need to encourage the mind of a seeker so that the seeker can purify the mind naturally, need not to do anything. Fourth indicator, something is very important and it is beneficial. We should talk about the benefit of it. So now it has been a play and a fun for us. So we remember them and we do it. The fifth one is the glorification. Whatever that is glorified must be important. For that example of a girl, so I'm glorifying what I'm glorifying? Binary format. How? Matter and consciousness. So I had a big smile. We both have a big smile. Come on, the noise is not conscious. Noise does not intentionally create a problem to you. Why don't you understand that? It is inert, it is matter. So what I'm doing, I'm glorifying the binary kind format. I'm glorifying the real self. You are conscious. Noise is unconscious. It is matter. Why don't you understand this? It's a very subtle, but gradually we will understand what is that subtle. And the sixth is we put all kinds of reason, logic, metaphor, not only to show the importance, whatever is illogical. Oh, come on, noise is inert. Noise is not creating a problem to you. How the noise can create a problem unless the noise knows here you are sitting in this house? Don't you realize it is totally illogical? Why you follow what is illogical? So some people, because the mind is working so deeply, unconsciously, habitually, they cannot get rid of it. So we repeat all these six. So we remember all those six factors. Now it has become a part of the lifestyle in every situation. So now he uses the word for contemplation and reflection. He uses the word vichar. Vichar simply means thinking. So the master is saying that you have to think, is there any duality? Is the God is different from an individual consciousness? Is the real self here is different from the God sitting in the temple? Or it is anything else? That is one way to think. Other way to think, why do we compare? So the master compares his book with an ocean. He says, with that ocean and the waves and the ripples, I help your intellect to shine. But why I help your intellect to shine? You rise in higher awareness. I remove all the doubts. What I am teaching exactly in this book, Shuddha Bodha, pearls of wisdom, that will three basic teaching. What is that three basic teaching? Whether you say it is a real self or whether you say it is a supreme self, it is only one. The pot space and the great space outside the pot is the same. You destroy the pot, that does not destroy the space inside the pot. You destroy the body drops. You cannot destroy that consciousness, which is outside and inside. That is the fundamental teaching. So when the mind lives with that clarity and understanding, one day what happens? We experience, we realize, we awaken, whatever the word we can use. So when we realize what happens, that is what the moksha, that is what the nirvana is, that is what the awakening is, that is what the realization. So the master says, I have written a book as if you are sailing in a boat, but if there are opposite wind of thoughts, it will make you crazy. It will continue to push you to live in ignorance. So when you read, listen, contemplate with the teacher. You have a favorable wind so that the boat will sail towards awakening. A metaphor, it's a good way to put it. And who is that stick? That stick is your teacher who puts you again, pushes your mind to return again to that. You look at it, he just minimized the role of a teacher also. Why? In the presence of a binary format. But we respect, we love the teacher because that is how the mind will help me. So both way. Well, it's a good way to compare this book, the title of the book, with understanding. Water removes the dirt in the body. So this book will remove the dirt in the mind and intellect. That is why he named this topic Taranga, the ripples. The ripples are topics, and the wave is nothing but the chapters. What he said, the water removes the dirt in the body, and in the same ocean you have a shark of enemies of the mind. So when you study this, it will swallow even the shark of ignorance. So he uses the metaphors, the shark of ignorance. Shark is very dangerous. It takes a fraction of a second to swallow us. So the power of ignorance is so great. The honey is talking, and what the hell? Don't talk to me. And the shark has come. How? Do you see the importance, the way he uses these terms? When I started understanding and realizing, I said, this guy is so crazy because he talks like the masters who has revealed those Upanishads. And he lived hardly 150 and 200 years ago. Think of his state. Then he says the indirect knowledge, not direct knowledge. So I get the direct knowledge by the sense organ. I see you directly through the sense organ coming through the mind. Direct perception. So there is an indirect perception through the mind. How the indirect perception works? I got some information about your shape and color and the face. The mind says you are this guy. You are this girl. Understand in a very simple way. When we say direct, I get the knowledge of nearby objects, which can be perceived by the sense organ. So when I deal with the far off objects, what about the sun? The science says, so I get the information and the knowledge in the mind. I will talk in detail about this. This is one of the most important principles. So it is known as paroksha jnana. I cannot prove through the sense organ how far is sun from me.
Yep.
But indirectly, through the mind, through the calculation, through the equation, I can find out how far the sun is. So far off objects, I can get the knowledge. So then there is a third type of the knowledge is known as aparoksha. In Sanskrit is known as dealing with myself. Dealing with who am I? Where knowledge received by the sense organ and the mind will not work. Dealing with the nearby objects, the senses cannot see the nearest. It will not work. Far off objects, it is not far. It is not far. So this type of instrument, which is mind, cannot work here. He uses a different way to make us understand. Oh, this will not work. That is the reason we have hundreds of doubts. Near of objects, I see the mouse, it's okay. Yes, I have understood this. Oh, this is the shape. Let me see it, and you touch it, and you got this. But it is the nearest. So I have a lot of doubts. Wrong notions. My mind starts jumping with a lot of wrong notions. Now I want to know. That is why we have an Eastern wisdom. So here the master uses a beautiful word that I want to explain to you. He says, Dhiraha. Dhi, Buddha. Also, the last word. Dhira means a seeker endowed with pure intellect. If he studies under a teacher, he awakens to the real self. A seeker who protects his intellect. Now, Dhira means, who is that? The highest level of a seeker is very important. And we need to apply this in our daily life. A seeker who protects his intellect from the worldly occupation of not self. Binary format, matter and the consciousness. So we can say real self and the false self. So now master says that any time the mind is dictated by the false self, you have to just become aware. I know you are awake, but you lose awareness. You have to become aware. Withdraw yourself. I know the I thought and the ego will push you hard, but still you have to withdraw yourself. Check, can I remain in pure awareness with my intrinsic nature, with my binary format, and is always aware of departure and arrival of thoughts. Any thought comes, it has to do with the not self. Can I claim I am the real self? All the time, just by remembering, we will understand what are the fivefold preoccupation of the mind that does not allow us to remain in that state. We will understand that. That's a long topic. So that is one way to understand. We will pick up couple of more. Master says that if you do not study this text and you want to reach to that state, there are more than 600 texts, and I have studied all of them, and I have summarized them. So do you want to study all those 600 texts? 100,000 verses. Then there you should also understand that how to put the logic to remove the illogical thoughts in your mind. What is illogical thought? I am worthy of suffering. But you are a consciousness. Consciousness never suffers. So I am presenting you in a very simple way. So you stick to this. I am consciousness and I am not worthy of suffering. So you have to study all the 6 different branches of the Eastern wisdom. You have to study yoga, you have to study about the nature and the structure of the mind and the functioning of the mind. You have to study the 5 subjective states and 5 objective states and how they work. And I have included everything here. So this is, that is what he says. So, what should we do before now? Last point, he says, what should we do before Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan? What should you do before the self-inquiry? The self-inquiry has three elements: Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyasan. So, what you should do before it? Sadhan Chatushtaya, Vivek Vairagya, six treasures. So he is going to explain in his own way. That is the beauty. So he goes in totally in a different way, different approach to Viveka, Vairagya, six treasures, intense desire for the freedom. So in a general way in the first chapter, in a specific way in the second chapter. Why? Because mostly we start our journey not with an intense desire. We start, mind claims that I am very good seeker, but again the mind travels here and there. So he wants to clarify all the doubts about it. So once those doubts